Now, what we are going to talk about in the next 15 minutes is this whole issue of character and leadership. And what we're going to do is, there are 4 steps that I'll try and focus on in these 15, 20 minutes, and these 15, 17 minutes. One is, what is character? What are the choices we make? What is leadership? And what is Kanda? And how it can be used in the workplace. Then, we'd look at actually building an ecosystem to make it happen. Okay? So that's what we're going to cover. You know, General Norman Schwarzkopf, the first commander of the Gulf War, he talked about leadership being a combination of character and strategy. And he says if you have to do without one, do without strategy. Okay, and character is therefore something you do when nobody is looking. That's the normal definition of character. But its character, as Emerson says, communicates far more eloquently than anything else. The words he uses is, what you are shouts so loudly in my ears, I cannot hear a word you say. So the question is, it's the choices we make and the actions that we take that demonstrates character. People only experience our actions, never our intentions. And the issue is, how do we get them into sync? And when we talk about choices, how do these come about? You know, we as individuals are a collection of attitudes, values, beliefs, assumptions that we hold deeply in our psyche and in our soul. Okay, it comes from our DNA, it comes from the experiences we've had in life, happy experiences, sad experiences that produce these assumptions. And what does this do? It causes us to emit behavior in certain ways. It causes us to make decisions the way we make them every day, and therefore get the results that we are actually producing every day. So in a sense, what we have to do is look at our assumptions, which lead to our values, which therefore lead to our results. And they say, the way you think determines the way you act, and the way you act portrays who and what you are. But it all stems from the way you think. And if we want to change our behavior, we need to move to the source, you know, because they say you change your behavior, the results change. But I cannot change my behavior unless I go to the very source of that change. And the source of the change is my assumptions, okay? So that's what we're going to do. Now what happens is, why does character really matter? You see, when it comes to leadership, what do competencies do? Competencies determine what a person can do. Commitment determines what they want to do. But character determines what they will do. And let me tell you an experience and a story happened here in the city of Mumbai. And this is coming from a doctor in Sion Hospital. Some of you may have heard of it, some of you may not. But this doctor, she's now retired, Armida Fernandez, who was in charge, she was made in charge one day of the premature baby care ward. In this premature baby care ward, the mortality rate was about 80%. Okay? And she said that I will make a difference and I will change this. Government hospital. To change it, you require money, you require resources, and really nobody cares too much of what you do. So one of the things she looked at is she thought perhaps the infections are the real cause of the babies dying. So what she did is she requested the engineers to move the wash basin into the ward. So if the wash basins were in the ward, she would ensure that the nurses and others were washing their hands and coming in. Of course, there was much resistance, but finally she got it done. Once she got it done, of course, the mortality rate didn't really come down. Then, when she traveled in an airplane, she realized that an airline teaches its passengers how to keep the toilet clean. Okay, and there's a small sign, and they talk, especially in Singapore Airlines and other places. So she started a process of how do I educate through the nurses the teenage children and others to educate their mothers, as well as you have a new generation of people who look at hygiene. There were small other things done, and through the ward boys and actually infusing everyone in that process to be proud of what is happening. Subsequently, the mortality rate still didn't come down. Then one day when she and her team were sitting together, they realized that the real culprit of this mortality rate may be the incubators, which were full of fungus and bacteria. Solution, remove the incubators. Government hospitals, inventories cannot be touched, etc. But anyway, she got it done. Now the question is, if you remove the incubators, how do you keep the babies warm? So she had cribs and simple electric bulbs, okay, and putting oil on the babies. Another source she found out infection was because of the milk that was being brought into the hospital. And so she stopped outside milk and said, let's have only mother's milk, because mother's milk is most infection proof. Then she looked at her doctors, and they said, you know, what we'll do is every time we give a drip or every time we give invasive, let's see what we should do. And they started writing this down. With the result, the number of pinpricks and injections came down. She also looked at, you know, when the babies were being dried with the same towel, infection went on. So she stopped that and had swabs. Okay? Within a space of 4 years, the infection rate came down from 80% to single digits. The WHO asked, what did you do? What was the technology? How did you go about it? And this is a story in our own city, and there are thousands of people like this, my friends. We can make a difference. And character is all about, irrespective of the environment, are you going to feed your mind, or are you going to go to a higher standard? That is what is important. Let not the environment worry you, because you can make a difference. And that is the point I want to make. What is a leader? A leader is somebody who is self-motivated. A leader is not looking at what is in it for me, but how can I actually be delivering results? How can I contribute? Okay? And that's the time you'll notice that there is the passion. I don't care for the externals. My salary may not go up, but if I do things, that is what is giving me the pressure. So this is the other thing with these kinds of leaders. They are really scared of being viewed as selfish or missing an opportunity. These are leaders who want to be perceived, you know, as not the knight in shining armor, but I take my portion and the rest is with the team. The important thing is that the team must constantly move. And when people work together and it really starts to come together, you find a team that is full of energy, that is full of passion, and that is full of development. Now, another thing with these leaders is they are always ensuring that they are resolving conflict. Okay? And most people try to avoid conflict. Most people push conflict under the table, but it is only through conflict that you can really get the best. And you can only have conflict if there is an element of trust. If there is a feeling that I can speak and that you as a leader can do. Okay? What does conflict do? It feeds on creativity, on innovation, on fun, on energy. And the excitement is all lost. And with conflict unresolved, you go home disappointed, flat, dissipated, and otherwise not done. Now, another thing is, a sound leader works on basis of what is right rather than who is right. And it's only this that gives you synergy. And what is synergy? You know that synergy is 1 plus 1 is equal to 3, 5, or 10, but let's look at it like a musical note. A single musical note has its strength, but musical notes put together create what? They create a chord, they create music, they create synergy. Okay? The single note does not lose its strength, but together they create something better than what it is. And that is what synergy is all about. And that is why as human beings, it's my strength and your strength so that we can produce a sum that is greater than the sum of its parts. And that is what we need to work on, and that is what a person is doing. Similarly, a sound leader only focuses on consensus, the ability not compromise. We will explore, we will see, and work on what can be done. And this can only be done through something called Kanda. Okay, what is Kanda? Kanda is actually having the courage to manage our fears and express them in open and objective way. Kanda in essence means you say what needs to be said, when it needs to be said, with the wisdom to select the right words and within the cultural context in which it takes place. Okay, so let me come to a story because I can see you're a little tired now. And this is a story of a nurse and Kanda. This is a story of a nurse again in a neonatal ward. And while she was working with these premature babies, many of these babies used to have a condition where they suddenly start becoming blue and action had to be taken. The blueness came because water collected around the lung and the lung collapsed. And while this nurse was working with this baby, she found the child suddenly after a couple of hours turning blue. They immediately called the X-ray technician, called the specialist, and everyone started preparing the ward for the collapse of the lung. So they put an injection, take out the water, and the lung reflates. But this nurse felt even the last baby died of a condition which was different. And she said it's the heart. And then the people in the ward, they said, look at all the monitors. They're showing the heart is beating at a normal rate of 130 beats per minute. And she said, no, it's the heart. And she moved everyone out. She took a stethoscope and they checked it and they found the heart had stopped beating. Then when the surgeon came in, she gave him the injection and said, stick the heart, it's not the lung. The surgeon looked at the thing because it was still working, but he accepted her because she had talked about a previous baby that had died of the same problem. They stuck the heart, they removed the water from the heart, and the baby started breathing. Now the question was, why did the monitors not work? Because these monitors are geared to get electrical impulses. So the heart, the nerves were beating, telling the heart to beat, and that was being monitored. What was not beating was the heart because of the water around it. Okay? So remember, between machines and people, insights are still valuable. But more importantly, it's a question of the lady having Kanda in a hierarchical setup where the doctor is the head to be able to say, we need to do something different. And that is Kanda. Let me give you another example of Kanda, and that is Kanda in the airlines. You know, the dynamics of the cockpit is key. It is 20 seconds to 30 seconds to react. And the airlines in the 70s had one death for 2 million people. Okay? But in the 90s, by looking at Kanda, they brought it down to 1 in 8 million. And how did they do it? You see, the cockpit, the captain was the key. Sometimes, and these are from voice recording, the left wing was on fire. The culture in the cockpit was so difficult that everyone thought the captain knew and no one would tell him. The plane He had his capabilities, he had what he needs to take. And once he realized that, treated them with humility, treated them with respect, they all came together and they worked. What I'll do now is I just want to end with a poem, and my 2 minutes will be up. And the poem is from an article in the Harvard Business Review, which says, What to Ask the Person in the Mirror by Robert Kaplan. It's called The Man in the Glass. I'm sure most of you have read it, but for those who have not, you'll find it interesting. When you get what you want in the struggle for self, and the world makes you king for a day, just go to the mirror and look at yourself and see what that man has to say. For it isn't your father or mother or wife whose judgments upon you must pass. The fellow whose verdict counts most in your life is the one staring back from the glass. You may be like Jack Horner and chisel a plum and think you're a wonderful guy, but the man in the glass says you're only a bum if you can't look at him straight in the eye. For he is the fellow to please, never mind all the rest, for he is with you clear to the end. And your past, your most dangerous and difficult test, if the man in the glass is your friend. You may fool the whole world down the pathway of years and pats on your back as you pass, but your final reward will be heartache and tears if you've cheated the man in the glass. So this is what Robert Kaplan says, that there comes a point in your career where you look at the glass, and the best way to figure out what you are doing is to step back. The answers are not important. More important is the questions you ask, because that's what brings reflection. So thank you very much.